Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going through the emergency evacuation announcement. Should we be required to evacuate the building, would you please leave the building via the nearest available exit to the chamber? Our assembly point will be in the public car park at the side of the Civic Suite. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by the council staff. Please note that this meeting will be audio recorded, and can I ask, if you've got mobile phones, could you put them on silent or turn them off, please? Thank you. Right. Do I have to do my name? I don't know. Today we're meeting to determine the application of a personal licence for Mr. Oliver Owen. And on my right, I have Ron Oldham, Arthur Williams, Councillor Arthur Williams, and Councillor Ron Oldham, and Rebecca Hurst. Okay, anything else? Can I have the, sorry about this, request the following persons to identify themselves, including their representative if applicable. So, the applicant, please. You're Mr. Owen, thank you.
Stephen Greener, I'm the Rochester Council Licensing Officer.
Thank you, Stephen.
Jen Fowler, Principal Licensing Officer, Rochester Council.
Thank you.
Joanne Stainsbury, County Licensing Officer for Essex Police.
And there's no any other responsible. Any interested parties? Chairman will announce the procedure which is to be followed by hearing. Yes, we're on 1.4? Yeah. Right, the procedure to be followed of the hearing is reference 3, item 3 of the agenda for the hearing. And can I draw your attention that we have 15 minutes? And if you are speaking, can I ask you to put your mic on? And be aware that if anyone else has got their mic on, once you finish, can you turn it off? Because on the chamber they don't work. Okay, thank you. So it'll be our officer first, please.
Good morning. Just to introduce the application for a personal licence made under Section 111 of the Licensing Act. The application must be determined within 5 working days of the conclusion of the hearing in accordance with paragraph 26 of the Licensing Act 2003, Hearings Regulations 2005. The application was submitted to the Licensing Authority by CPL Training and refers to the applicant, Mr. Oliver Owen. Appendix A of your package includes a copy of the original application form. The application was distributed to Essex Police and Immigration on the 31st of October for consultation with a deadline of the 14th of November 2017. On Wednesday, the 8th of November 2017, the Licensing Authority received a representation from Essex Police against the application. The objection notice was served under the Licensing Act 2003, Section 120, paragraph 5, that the applicant has a current unspent criminal conviction. Appendix B is a copy of the objection notice issued by Essex Police. Appendix C is a copy of the Home Office documentation outlining the relevant offences. All parties involved have been served with the relevant notices, documentation as required by paragraph 6 and 7 of the Licensing Act 2003, Hearings Regulations 2005. The authority is required to take steps to consider appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives, the prevention of crime disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance and the protection of children from harm. In considering this application, members must also have regards to the Statement of Licensing Policy and Section 182 guidance issued by the Secretary of State. The following options are available to members: to grant the application or to reject the application. The proposal is that the subcommittee resolves the determination of the application, having considered all representations made at the hearing. And that's the conclusion of the report.
Right. Essex Police are objecting to the application to grant a personal licence for Oliver Owen. The objection notice was served according to the Licensing Act 2003, Section 120D, that the applicant has a current unspent relevant offence. In December 2017, Oliver Owen pleaded guilty and was convicted at North East London Magistrates Court of a driving motor vehicle with excess alcohol on the 29th of October 2014 in Romford, Essex. At the time of his arrest and conviction, Mr Owen was a serving Metropolitan Police officer. This raises serious concerns as to Mr Owen's ability to uphold the 4 objectives of the Licensing Act. In the 1974, the Licensing Act was drawn up to ensure that only persons of a fit and proper character could hold a position of a licensee. Despite amendments and changes in the Licensing Act 2003, this necessity of being able to hold a position of responsibility and adhere to regulations and legislation is a requirement continued in the role of designated premise supervisor, of which a personal licence holder, if granted, would be able to apply for. For this reason, the true weight of responsibility encompassed in the position cannot be ignored and placed in the hands of police at application stage to be assessed and cross-referenced against the Licensing Act 2003 and any recognised as relevant offences. It is a weighty responsibility to balance a person's need to gain suitable employment against the demonstration of suitable and robust character to carry out this responsible role. Due to the seriousness of the offence and disregard for UK law and the safety of others, when already in a position of responsibility, Essex Police oppose the granting of the personal licence until completion of rehabilitation period.
Thank you. That's it. You're on.
Try again.
That's it.
That's it.
Start, yeah.
Yes. Excuse my squeaky voice. I seem to be losing. Could you just enlarge on the circumstances surrounding the actual drink driving offence?
Mr Owen's licence was endorsed and 16 months ban due to the amount of alcohol found in his urine. Oh. According to our research and after speaking to the licensing officer at Barking, Mr Owen had attended a Christmas do. Unfortunately,
there just seems to be some inconsistencies on the application form. It has here that it was on the 20th of the 12th. I'm not sure if it's the 13th or the but on the police objection notice it says that Mr Owen pleaded guilty on the 22nd of the 12th. So was it a year or between being caught and then pleading guilty? Thank you.
I think I can provide a little bit more clarity around that if that will help. The application, when I originally looked at the application form on the handwritten, it tends to indicate that it was 2017 on page 182. 1.8, is that what you're referring to? And then obviously the letter from Essex Police states it was on the 22nd of December 2014. What hasn't been included in here is a copy of the DBS certificate, and I believe it was actually 2014 that the offence actually went to court rather than 2017. It will be 5 years, so 2019 is when the conviction will be spent. Okay.
That's right.
I was just going to step in. I think Councillor Otam's question was perhaps, and the answer was stopped short because of the fact that it was a question about other convictions, which wouldn't be relevant. But I think the
about other convictions. I just wanted to see what the circumstances.
but he was wanting to know the circumstances of the offence, the facts of the offence. I think the officer had started to say that. I don't know if you'd like to hear.
Yes, I think that would be beneficial.
So you want the actual explanation of the research behind this, of the event? Oh.
I think, Chair, would just like to know that the facts of the offence, a short summary of the circumstances. He started saying it was after a Christmas do.
That's sufficient, I think.
No, I think. No, can we have the bit more so we can, when we do determination, please?
Okay. After speaking to the licensing officer at Barking, his research showed that Mr. Owen had been to a Christmas do. Unfortunately, had missed his train and then decided to drive home. He was then pulled over by fellow officers and taken into custody. He did not give a roadside sample, and after several hours in custody, then gave a urine sample.
Thank you very much.
First of all, I would like to thank you for your time and this opportunity. Before I go any further, I just want to say at no point am I trying to justify what I did. I know this was wrong and I've learnt from my mistake. I've never would make the same mistake again, but I think I've been punished enough. I'm a very good character. In January 2003, I joined the Metropolitan Police Force. I started my career in Hackney, which is one of the most diverse boroughs in London. I spent over 8 years in Hackney, starting off from a response team, answering 999 calls. I quickly moved on to the plainclothes task force, which involved targeting suspects of violent crime. In 2011, I joined SO23, which was a dedicated police team for the London Olympics. I led a small team working in the Olympics Athletes Village and the Olympic venues. After the Olympics, I moved to Romford. I was in charge of the nighttime economy team. This involved working closely with the licensing team and council and licensed venues to ensure they were following their licensing conditions. On the 25th of the 10th, 2014, my grandmother died. She was like a mother to me. My mother and dad divorced when I was young, and my grandmother brought me up whilst my mother was at work. On the 29th of the 10th, 2014, I attended a work night out. I had arranged to stay at one of my colleagues' houses, but late in the evening, my colleague had an argument with his partner and I was unable to stay at his house. Because it was so late, I missed my last train. My phone battery was dead and I was unable to contact my wife to pick me up. My only option was to sleep at the police station. As I was walking back to the police station, I had a stupid thought and made the biggest mistake of my life. I remembered my car was parked in residence parking and I decided to move my car to the next row to avoid getting a parking ticket. I was in my car for approximately 4 to 5 minutes when a police unit who I knew very well stopped me, and then I was arrested. I was in the police service for 11 years. I had an impeccable disciplinary record. I'd received a number of accommodations for my hard work. I'd never ever been in any kind of trouble prior to this incident, and can put my hand on my heart to say I will never be in any trouble again. This was definitely the worst moment in my life. Due to this incident, I had to resign from a job I loved, which I served the public to the best of my ability for 11 years. I'd passed my sergeant's exam and board and was waiting for my promotion start date. Not only was I devastated, but my wife left me. My mother didn't talk to me for 3 months. But this was my own fault. I had no one else to blame but myself. I had to move on with my life. Not only my wife left me, my mum was not talking to me, and I was jobless for the first time since I was 13 years old. I had to dust myself down and move on with my life. After a long recruitment process, I got a new job as a security manager for Transport for London. I was quickly promoted to deputy account manager and then to account manager. I'm now working for Aspers Casino in Stratford, which is the biggest casino in Europe. I'm currently a senior security manager. I've been working there for 3 months. I've just received my first review and I'm doing very well. It clearly states in my contract that I need to gain a personal alcohol licence to remain in employment. If I don't obtain this licence, I will be unemployed. I understand the police have objected to my licence because I have a relevant unspent conviction, and if the licence was granted, it would undermine the licence's objective of preventing crime. My argument today is that I've made a mistake. I've paid dearly for that. I lost my wife and my job. I have impeccable character records and have never been in trouble with police before this incident. I believe my prior policing background will have the opposite effect. I will possibly prevent crime through my prior experience and my excellent knowledge of the Licensing Act. I've recently completed my licensing course. There were 25 students where I scored the highest. Just wanted to thank you again for this time and this opportunity. Thank you. Sure.
Excuse me, Mr. Owen. Did you refuse a breath test at the side of the road at the time of arrest and then again at the police station?
Back on, thank you. Thank you for waiting. The committee has given evidence, careful evidence and consideration to the application and all of the written and verbal evidence presented, including the objection notice from the Essex Police. We note that the applicant has a conviction dated 22nd December 2014, almost 3 years ago. The conviction will become spent in 2 years' time. It is the case that the applicant could apply for this licence in 2 years' time and would fulfil the necessary criteria. We are aware that the authority must reject the application if it considers it appropriate for the promotion of the crime prevention to do so. We heard that the police objection related to the nature of the offence and the fact that the applicant was a serving police officer at the time and was therefore in a position of authority. However, we do not feel that there is any direct correlation between the facts of this offence and the sale or supply of alcohol. We have taken into account that there are no further relevant convictions. We have heard that as a direct result of this single conviction, the applicant's long-standing career as a police officer ended. However, the applicant has subsequently been able to obtain and hold positions of responsibility as a security manager for Transport for London and in his current employment as a security manager at a casino. We take the view that in this particular case the applicant will be more aware of his responsibility as a personal licence holder in respect to the sale and supply of alcohol. For these reasons, we do not feel that the grant of this personal licence further undermine the licensing objective of prevention of crime and disorder, and accordingly the personal licence is granted. This concludes the hearing, and thank you all for attending. Thank you. So we've got to go? Yep. Thank you very much. Emergency evacuation announcement. Should we be required to evacuate the building, would you please leave the building via the nearest available exit to the chamber? Our assembly point will be in the public car park at the side of the Civic Suite. Please do not delay your evacuation to collect any belongings. Please do not return to the building until given permission to do so by the council staff. Please make sure your phones are on silent or turned off. Please note this meeting will be audio recorded. Thank you. This application is to determine. Is it actually a personal notice?
No, temporary event.
A temporary event notice for the Skylark Hotel /06 at Southend. We have in attendance Councillor Ron Oldham, Councillor Williams, and our senior solicitor Rebecca Hurst. We haven't got any applicant in attendance. We have the council's licensing officers.
Jen Fowler, Principal Licensing Officer, Rochford Licensing.
Stephen Greener, Rochford Council Licensing Officer.
Thank you. And responsible authorities?
Joanne Stainsbury, County Licensing Officer for Essex Police.
Thank you very much. And we've got no other interested parties. There will be 15 minutes permitted for any responsible authority to present their submissions, and we'll go to our RDC officers, please.
Good afternoon. This report introduces an application for a temporary event notice made under Section 100 of the Licensing Act 2003. During the consultation period, an objection was received from the police regarding the planned event. The application must be determined at the conclusion of the hearing at least 24 hours before the beginning of the event in accordance with paragraph 26(1) of the Licensing Act 2003, Hearing Regulations 2005, and section 105(4) of the Licensing Act 2003. On the 23rd of December 17, a temporary event notice was received from Mr. Andreas Stavanides of the Skylark Hotel, Aviation Way, Southend-on-Sea. The notice was for an event to be held at 06 Suite on the 15th of December 17 from 1800 hours until 22:55 hours. The licensable activities are for the sale of alcohol, the provision of regulated entertainment and the provision of late night refreshment. The maximum number of people attending the event is to be 499. The hotel already holds a premises licence, although this excludes the external area and 06 Suite. An objection notice was received from the Chief of Police on the grounds that the use of the premises in accordance with the temporary event notice would undermine the crime prevention and public safety objectives of the Act. All parties involved have been served with the relevant notices and documentation required by paragraphs 6 and 7 of the Licensing Act 2003, Hearing Regulations 2005. The Licensing Authority must serve any notice required under Section 1053 of the Licensing Act 2003 at least 24 hours before the beginning of the event. The options for the committee are to determine the event would undermine the licensing objective of the prevention of crime and disorder and serve a counter notice stating the reasons for that decision, or to allow the licensable activities to go ahead as stated in the notice. Recommendation. It is proposed that the subcommittee resolves to determine the issue, having considered all representations made at the hearing.
Okay. Essex Police asked for the temporary event notice to be objected to on the basis of our submission, which I take that everyone has read. Yes. Just to outline, we received a 10 with regard to a boxing activity. It was later discovered on, I believe it was Facebook, which was advertised by Giles Carter, the promoter, that they were actually going to be doing bare knuckle fighting. The rules that they state here is there are going to be doghouse rules, 1 round of unlimited minutes, 3 knockdowns, a knockdown rule fight until someone quits or is knocked out and doesn't beat the count of 20, or heart sign. From the police's point of view, the lack of actual rules that this fight and the advert envisages is a conspiracy to commit GBH. I refer to our case law of Lord Lane, where he says that in basis that people don't actually agree to be publicly harmed. Within bare knuckle fighting, we have had several deaths. I believe there was one in Great Yarmouth which was quite publicised, and this is obviously not regarded as boxing. There are various rules and regulations which adhere to the boxing. From the police have not been able to actually risk assess the event. We have not been able to confirm the door staff. We have tried to contact the door staff company without success. Investigation shows that it was a door company created by a builder who builds in the day and does door staff in the evening, but he was not contactable to discuss what risk assessments he'd actually done to control the crowd. If the event continues, then we would probably have to proceed with a closure notice, which would cause even more problems and mass public disorder when entering the premise. The temporary event notice does not say that there's a bare knuckle fight. It says it's boxing. He has had previous boxing events and we have had no problems with the boxing events. But this concerns us very much as it is bare knuckle and has no rules at all. Our other problem with this particular event is the fact that it will be held at 06. 06 is not a licensed part of the premise, so therefore no conditions can be put on, and it is an unlicensed area. Therefore, we are asking for the temporary event notice not to go through.
Come to questions. I have one question. Have our officers seen a risk assessment? Have we seen? They've not put it in with their application form. No risk assessment at all. Not a full out, right? You'd expect at any event.
In the last 24 hours, I have seen documentation that has come through from the promoter and also from the applicant with details of the boxes, of their names and their dates of birth, but not a full risk assessment that you would expect for a full event management event, such as the number of door staff, how they're going to manage the crowds. None of that has actually been received by us.
No paramedics, no doctors advised?
There is mention of paramedics and doctors, but it just says that there will be paramedics and doctors present.
Right, okay.
There is lack of detail within the information that's come through.
Right, thank you very much. That's my question. Councillor Williams?
No. It states on here that it's an unlicensed event. If it were a licensed event, who would license it?
We license, regulated entertainment is obviously the music and dancing and things, but there is a licensable activity for boxing and wrestling. And if he's on the licence, so if he did have a premises licence and he had boxing and wrestling on there, then it would be licensable. But then we would still, if we knew about the event, we would ask for risk assessments. And again, if we saw this sort of advert, it would be flagged up.
Thank you.
That be the police? Yeah. Question for the police. What crime issues do you see? Is it me? Oh,
yeah. To the actual boxers, it is a conspiracy to commit GBH. And this type of event is notorious with public disorder. Hence, without the door staff and risk assessment.
Thank you very much. Mic on there, sorry. Thank you very much. Do either parties want to do a summing up on it with 2 minutes? Said all we've got to. You've got to. Thank you. Have you any more questions? No? Thank you. Yeah. Well, we're going to adjourn it for a decision and we will come back to you. Thank you. Oh, Julie's gone. Sorry it was longer than 20 minutes. The committee has given careful consideration to the application and all the written and verbal evidence presented, including the objection notice from Essex Police. The committee has not heard from the applicant or any representative and we can therefore only base our decision on the evidence presented to us at this hearing. We have heard evidence from the police as to the nature of the event, which is not conventional licensed boxing. Evidence has been provided on Facebook advertisements promoting the event on the 15th of December 2017 at the Skylark Hotel as a bare knuckle brawl. You right? No, that's all right. The accompanying wording refers to doghouse rules with 1 round of unlimited minutes. It does not appear to follow the rules of a regulated boxing match. In addition, we have heard that a full detailed risk assessment has not been submitted, and police have not been able to verify the security arrangements. The police have submitted case law Lord Lane in the Attorney General reference number 6 of 1980/1981, which states, "It is not in the public interest that people should try to cause or should cause each other actual bodily harm, and assert that an event of this nature could amount to an offence of conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, and we accept the police evidence." Furthermore, they have also raised the increased risk of increased public disorder at the events of this nature. We take the view that an event with a capacity of up to 499 people with no full risk assessment, unregulated, and with the supply of alcohol does increase the risk of public disorder and criminal offences occurring. We also note that the venue is not part of the licensed premises and therefore no conditions can be attached. For these reasons, the committee has determined that a counter notice should be served in order to promote the objective of prevention of crime and disorder. This concludes the hearing. Thank you all. Yep.